Hi. Welcome to the Works in Process. I'm Tyler Angle, and I'm going to introduce you to, or reacquaint you with, or if you already know them and are acquainted, hopefully get to know in a more intimate way, BalletCollective's work and the process behind the work. And it occurred to me when I was driving up here from Brooklyn that the title of this whole series is really fitting for this ballet company, which I think, a ballet company in quotes, it's called a collective for a reason. And I think that it's sort of sprung into action because the founders, because Troy and his different collaborators wanted to change and focus the process by which new works were made. And they've assembled a crack team of dancers and musicians, and I think you're really going to enjoy everything that you see. Another thing that occurred to me when I was sort of reading tidbits from their own press release, when they're throwing words out like, the works are intimate and reflective yet accessible, that they all collaborate as equals, that the artists from different genres come together to express ideas that are both important to them individually, but as a group, a collective, they're encouraged to think outside of what it is that they usually do. And these are pretty large claims. I mean, someone who is a cynic or who goes to a lot of shows could think, yeah, well, I mean, I've heard that before. But I think what you're going to see is that you have here all willing participants that are 150% engaged in what they're doing. And I even got more excited about the talk when I was sitting and watching the rehearsal earlier, so I think that you're in for a really wonderful evening. We're going to start actually with several small excerpts from a ballet that premiered last year called All That We See.
Hello, my name is Troy Schumacher, and I'm the director of BalletCollective. And before we show the next excerpt of this work, I thought it might be helpful to answer perhaps the most common question that is ever asked of me, which is, how do you do this? How do you choreograph? And it's interesting because there's no, like, at the art store, bring at home choreography kit, do it at home, you know, give it a try. And it's something that's kind of rare. And this last excerpt from All That We See, I think, yields itself pretty well to show how to articulate how choreography happens. Because when this is asked of me at a dinner table, I can kind of tell you, but it's really challenging without all of these elements here, which I think is really the essence of choreography. It's pretty impossible without all of these elements here. So the first step is listening to music 1,000 times. And I'm going to spare you that, and we're just going to listen to it once, because we have this amazing ensemble here, Hotel Elefant, and they're just going to play through and try to hear what you observe from listening. So 166. Great, so you get a sense of it. And this piece is a short 3-minute-ish section of a 18-minute ballet. And upon listening to this music over and over again, I kept on thinking of, there's this one poster as you walk into our theater at New York City Ballet, and it's of the Joffrey Ballet, and I think it's from the 80s. And it's very kind of this lo-fi graphic design in which you have this male dancer in a jump, but the image is kind of overlaid upon itself 5 times, so you just see a little bit of the image. And this ballet has 5 dancers in it, and hearing this section, it's mostly in 5. So you kind of hear this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's these sections where it's 7 5s, and then a 4, and then 5 5s, a 4, and then a 5. And that kind of repeats throughout the whole thing. And then as a choreographer, my job is mainly to think of how this can be visualized. And so I go into a studio, and I dance around by myself, and I film myself on my iPhone, just trying to see what it looks like to dance. And you know, it became very apparent to me that this idea of this music would be very nicely displayed amongst 5 dancers in a really fast canon. which I think is, one thing you have to really think of is like when you're choreographing, how many dancers are in there? So you can kind of think of it in your mind what it might look like, but it really doesn't happen until you get into the studio. So I'd like to invite the 5 dancers, all that we see out here. And I'm just gonna kind of show you about like how I might come to terms with like the best way to visualize the music. So we have 5 counts that you've heard the music, obviously. And let's have Meagan be 1, Claire is 2, Taylor is 3, Lauren's 4, and David is 5. So you're gonna go on your count. And just to kind of like very simply visualize a way to do it, why don't we just do on our count like a lunge and tendu, okay? So you would do like that. So I'll give you a 5 for nothing, and we'll do that. Ready? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. So that's kind of like a very kind of simple idea where you see 5 people doing the same thing at once. And kind of immediately when I thought of this, I didn't want to see 5 separate people. I wanted to see one person in a way. So why don't we try doing that in a line? So, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. So you kind of like, you get to see this complete motion. And when we figured out this idea would work, you'd have to figure out like what do you want that motion to be. Because I like the way it relates to music, but it's a little, it's just a lunge in tendu, which is a great step. But maybe we can do something like, what if we tried going arabesque on our count? So you would just go, yeah, just like very light. Okay, so let's try that. So ready, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great, I like that. Okay. Or we could try going like a little attitude, like an attitude burst. Okay, so ready? Let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like that better. So then, why don't we just accentuate the step together? So you would take a whole 5 counts. This is where becoming a dancer gets a little tricky because you have to be really thinking about being specific. So Meagan would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then Claire would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so on and so on. So let's just see those 2 steps together. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. And now, what can we do after this? Why don't you just like turn out of it? Yeah, so just do like a turn, and then step back into tendu. Yeah, we could try that. Okay, ready? So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great, that's cool too. But it kind of seems like a little too much movement right away. So why don't we go here, and then why don't we just step? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then why don't we just step and cross our arm? Okay. So, ready? 1, 2, right, 5 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now, why don't we just kick from there? Yeah. All right? Okay. So, hum, kick. Normally we have a mirror to do this with, so it's hard. Hum, kick. Yeah. Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like that. But why don't we circle the arm when we do it? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. So you kind of get the idea. I don't need to go on because this takes like a long time. But I think you just like, you get the idea of kind of the play where you're coming up with ideas and you're seeing if they work and how they look on the dancers. And just to give you a sense of what it's like, let's just do that first part with music. Okay. Great, yeah. So there's just like a little bit of glimpse of what kind of happens. And so the next step, as this goes on, I'm trying to think what might else be interesting to do. Right there. I mean, it doesn't always come right away. But I think the next part of this piece, which shows a different idea, is, well, I guess we can do one more step. Why don't we just do one more step? So we do this. Why don't we just step together? 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. So, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could do that. Yeah. See, I think the best part of what you're choreographing is that sometimes you have this idea and you try to then physically portray it. And then the dancer is often doing their best job at physically portraying it, but because they're different dancers, something else happens. And sometimes it's better, and you keep it, and then sometimes it's not. And sometimes it just gives you a laugh when you need to figure out what the next step is, which can be really helpful. So there's this way of thinking about the music, and then you think of the big structure. And then I want to skip to another section, which the music starts to kind of break out. So it stays in this place with a different structure, and then there's this guitar entrance that's a little unexpected. So let's say we're in this line right here. And do you have the measure number of when the guitar comes out? 182. So can we listen to 182? So you hear the same theme is happening, but there's a little element adding. So I think what I see is that something is breaking out. So let's have Taylor break out. And just the way you might develop a step is you hear this melody that goes like bum, 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 and it has that nice following feel. But maybe that's not so elegant. So my initial thought, and this happened very easy, is just to kind of like lunge out and then have kind of 3 falls. So what would that look like? So go, bum. Great, so it's like a very different type of movement to these short movements. So Taylor's gonna like break out, and then what do? We have Claire and we have David as a group, and we'll have Lauren and Meagan as a group. And we should keep it something similar, but we should have it move a little bit more. So why don't we have 2 people jump this way and then jump across. So let's have David. Right? That's it. Okay. And then you would do the reverse. You would go hum, look away, look away. And so David and Claire will go on 1, and Meagan and Lauren will go on 3. Yeah. So let's just see what that looks like. Okay. So, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. So that's just another way. Let's just see it one more time. But can we start? Are you doing 1 bar before? Is that what you did? Okay. So this is 1 bar. You're gonna in silence or with music? 1 bar. Okay. So she's gonna count in a 5. So let's see how this happens. Yep. 1, 2, 3, go. Great. So that's just like a little glimpse. And this goes on for hours because choreography takes a really long time, and it requires all of these things. And before we start going into all this process, I just thought it might be a little touch interesting for you to see. So now they're gonna dance this whole section, and then we're gonna talk about things.
We're going to invite Mark Danciger up to the panel. He is the composer for the next excerpt that you're going to see, a ballet called
Untitled right now.
Untitled.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it had a, well, it said Untitled on my sheet, and I thought maybe that was incorrect.
We're working on it. It's in process.
It's a work.
Way to get the dig in. Would you like to start with slides, or would you like to start with my investigations?
I think I want to hear your investigations.
Okay. There was something that struck me the first time that I saw this, and it was sort of a kind of halting musical structure that appears, and I don't know if we're going to see, well, actually, no, I think we will see a bit of that in the excerpt. And I was wondering watching this piece as well, if you ever specifically ask for, you're a musician, and I was wondering if you ever specifically asked for phrases or a type of a phrase or a type of a rhythmic structure that would enhance, help, or bring about a certain step that you had in your mind.
Well, I don't know. I think you should answer that question.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
So when Troy and I first started looking at the photographs, which we'll show you by Dafy, I called Troy and actually asked him to send me some improvisations that he would associate with the photographs, and I do that actually because...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Improvisations of Troy running around in the studio? Or...
Yeah, and we don't have them here to show you.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify for the audience that you're talking about actual video clips of him, of what physically he was responding to from the photographs.
Yeah, they've been destroyed.
Shame. You should keep them for your
archive. So as a composer, I'm really inspired by different types of motion. And so looking at the photographs, I was really trying to think about what kinds of movement on a musical level. I mean, obviously ballet is about movement, but music I think really is too in a lot of ways. So I was just sort of interested in what Troy's take on the feeling of like movement through time that you could intuit from the photographs. So in a way, that was my starting point for writing some of those kinds of circular, slowly evolving phrases.
I think it's interesting because I think a lot of the time you sort of shirk a larger, like, concrete structure for a piece as far as shape goes for structure in a phrase, in a musical phrase, and then a movement phrase. Like, what I find striking generally is that you can watch something in a phrase, like the phrase that we saw Taylor Stanley do, this sort of falling phrase, then, an odd 7 bars later, you'll see Kretzschmar doing the same phrase coming around. And these sort of things knit the piece together rather than having these people in a line, and then they're moving here, and then they're doing... Does that come, like he's saying that from watching you, these things appeared in his work. I'm wondering if this sort of idea of sticking with like a phrase structure more to like a wider structure comes from the music, or is this coming from the photographs? Where does that...
Well, I think it partially comes from preference. I think I love choreographing to music that has so much to latch on to, and I really find that when I'm going to watch dance performances, my favorite performances are when music and dance really link together in a satisfying way. And as a choreographer, when you're trying to think of ways to visualize music, the more you have to latch on to, kind of the better. And we talked about that, like the idea of keeping it moving in a way, which is a different type of movement in music, and having moments in the music that you can kind of emphasize based on your perception of it. So I love, like, when you're choreographing, there's the whole structure of the piece, which is so important, but it's kind of like, it's just like life. It's like those individual moments that I think are the most memorable and are worth latching onto.
So when you both were having these sort of specific discussions about your own work personally, had you already commissioned or spoken to Dafy about these photographs, or was this sort of like a budding idea that then you went to a third source to kind of hone?
Well, I think I had decided about Mark, and I think what's really important for these collaborations is when you're trying to put together these individual collectives, everybody has to be interested in each other's art, or else it's not necessarily, enriching in a way. So, I think ultimately when you're watching these works, it's a piece of music and a piece of choreography on the stage. And so for us to find a mutual artist that I thought could provide us something that also had a lot of individual moments to latch onto would be really valuable. So it was kind of like Mark, and then I sent Mark, photographers that might be great for this, and then we kind of zeroed in on Dafy's work.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that is that it was a really interesting thing for me, just the idea of being presented with photographs to make music sort of inspired from. I've done some work with film, and obviously film moves through time, but photography doesn't in the same way. So in a sense, to your question, the idea of kind of coming up with ways of moving through time in a way was kind of, I guess I viewed it as sort of the province of our arts in a way. The choreography and the music would have to create the sense of motion. The photographs have this lovely feeling and this lovely atmosphere and the barest hint of a story. But how you get through or frame that story in time was, I think, in our court.
Can we show some of these? And I'm probably going to say his name incorrectly, but it's Dafy Hagai.
Yeah, it's her name.
Her name, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Dafy Hagai. We've only done emails.
So, can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, it's my night. So, I think, the most important part of this Ballet Collective process is finding a work of art that's created for each collective to serve as kind of so many things: inspiration, a framework, potentially a foundation, potentially a launch pad, anything. It's a way for us, because our art forms have very similar words to describe very different things, but we can both look at this photograph and know exactly what we're looking at. So we spoke with Dafy about our art forms and what she would be interested in, and she sent us these 4 photographs, which we both really liked and had an interesting response to. And I can just kind of walk you through them. I think we were both just smitten with this photograph that shows this this empty car that is just so lived in and has so much kind of personality, and there's this crack or something on the windshield, and it's just someone's missing. And then these 2 photographs, which show this home in this really kind of, there's nothing really super special about it, except for you can tell maybe it has some, meaning.
And I think in a way that's what we liked, is that some of these scenes felt like they could be almost anywhere. I mean, they have enough detail in them that you, I think, get a very specific emotional response, but there's not a lot of, as Troy's saying, detail about where you are necessarily.
And then there's this one, which finishes off the series, which...
Yeah, so this one was the kind of the key to it, and the ballet is a male duet, and the inspiration here was that when we were looking at this photograph, both Troy and I felt that there had to be some sort of story here as to why this embrace was happening and the way in which it was happening, and was this some sort of homecoming moment? Was it a kind of reunion? Is there a sense of kind of relief of coming back to something? What is the story that kind of led up to this moment? And in a way, that's what the ballet became about, is our sense of some kind of a history of this duet, this pair, that would lead to a moment like this. And actually, there is kind of a moment like this, or at least I think that there is, and I don't know if Troy thinks of it this way, but the kind of first arrival in the ballet, where the music kind of gets very slow, and the 2 dancers have this very elongated, spacious kind of movement where it's like they're blocking out kind of vast amounts of space and time. I kind of see that as some kind of embodiment of a moment like this. But again, we don't really know exactly what the history of these people might be, and that was where we started, I think.
So this 4th photograph, did she hit you both with this one? Like, you were not expecting this? It could have been, did you ask for people to be shot in any of her?
We kind of talked about it not focusing so much on individual characters so much. And I just love this, because it just looks like 2 people kind of ran at each other, embraced, and then just fell onto this kind of, luscious
Well, it could be
green grass.
anything. That's what I think is so appealing about it, is that every single person in this room could have a different story about what just preceded that moment.
Right.
And this is really a case where your third-party source, I mean, this is something that you got in an email, and it changed where everything was going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this was kind of the defining inspiration for at least the start of my process, which then sort of led into Troy's.
Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating. I think we should see a little bit of the duet for David and Taylor now. I'm just going to quickly read you a quote that Dafy sent me about the collaboration. She said, for my collaboration with BalletCollective, we talked about how to create little story in which the relationship between the two models wasn't very clear. You can't know whether they're friends, lovers, family, but they're cuddled in the grass in nowhere. It was magical for me to see how this feeling would be interpreted into a ballet piece based on the atmosphere of my work. And I think that watching it, having seen the photographs, you do get a sense that we're seeing, and this is a beautiful thing that you said the other day, that this duet is actually something that's happening in real time. This isn't removed, this is two people actually, and you can sort of see it in their movements, speaking to each other through their movements in real time. So we're seeing from the stagnant photographs, we get this beautiful perfume and an atmosphere, but through the music and the dancing, we sort of see what the conversation was that they could have been having. When you watch this, sorry, one last question for you. When you watch this now, are there things that you may go back to the score, things that you've seen in the phrase work of the bodies and the movement that you may try to bring out or change or shade in a different way?
That's a good question. When I first saw Troy's choreography to this, I was just really moved by how musical all of the movement is. I think you said something interesting, which was that it feels like the ballet has been created in real time. Mm-hmm. To me, it's almost like the way that they move feels like they're creating time. You know, they're like creating this story, which is kind of very tightly matched to all these kind of micro gestures in the music. So to answer your question, maybe no. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a really interesting match that they've achieved and that Troy's achieved, you know, with all of these smaller motions.
But I also think that this work's been in development for so long, and there have been so many back and forths where, you know, I've talked about the score, and I would send Mark videos, and he would send me really, you know, astute feedback. And I think that that's what's really interesting about these collaborations, is that when you have artists giving you feedback across genres based on your interpretation of their work, it's oftentimes very spot on because they understand where you're coming from. So
I think it's very
and
tight
I've
as
changed
well.
things.
Oh, I guess I did. Yeah, yeah.
But earlier on in the process.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. I actually can't wait to see the whole thing.
Thanks
for coming up. Do you want to invite your two other collaborators to the panel?
Should I? I'd like to invite Ellis Ludwig-Leone and Paul Maffi to come join us.
Ellis, immediately to Troy's left, is the music director and composer for BalletCollective, and Paul is the contributing artist for this next work that we're going to see. A larger work, about 20-something minutes?
Yeah, I think it's around 25 minutes long.
I think we should start, actually, right off the bat, showing some of Paul's photographs. And maybe if you could speak to who called you first with this idea, and what was said to you that made you go in the direction that you ended up going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Pardon my English, first of all. Troy asked me to produce some images to then choreograph ballet. I think I obviously never did. Complete freedom. So my first step was to speak to Ellis and ask, how do you compose based on a picture other than, you know, the obvious, the picture's blue, I'm going to make a sad song. Mm. So he said something really interesting about lines, and that's where I started. He said, well, it could be the outline of a portrait, or it could be, you know, the lines in a room. So I started thinking along those lines, and I decided to give Ellis a room and Troy a hero. And it was based on two pictures that it's two postcards. One is a picture of a red ceiling by Eggleston, and the other one is a portrait by Peter Hujar of, this I never remember, David Vojanorovich. Now I've had these two postcards with me for about 10 years. They made it through all my notebooks somehow. I never bothered turning them around and reading what the portrait was about, who was the person in the portrait. I then investigated his work, and that kind of gave me the final idea.
And Ellis, when you, because the music for this is actually a song cycle, did you sort of have that in the back of your mind, or when you saw what Paul sent back to you, then you thought that it would go in that direction?
Yeah, Troy and I this is our 5th ballet that we've done together, and they've sort of spanned a kind of a wide array of like types of music. I mean, like last month we just did a piece at New York City Ballet that was for an orchestra and it was very classical. And Troy mentioned, I have a band that I spend a lot of time with on the road, and he said it'd be fun to do something with voice. It's a little bit more of a song kind of thing. And so I think with that as a very sort of seed idea in mind, then we found Paul. And it was actually really fortuitous because, as Paul said, he gave us a room and a hero. Mm-hmm. And as I was writing lyrics for this, it's like a really weird challenge to write lyrics for something to be danced to. And it was really great to be able to sort of filter that through this person that the photographs are of. So I could imagine that person sort of speaking rather than trying to, do something. It was a very useful way to do that.
And it seems like you got very specific at certain points with the lyrics, with specific photographs. I don't know, like maybe a green photograph or something like this, or there's a "Paint Me Green" lyric. Can you speak to that a little bit? And also, if you felt any pressure, because I think when people hear words, they immediately, it's a literal thing. We're hearing words, it's either directions or descriptions, and then, they're immediately putting it up against what's happening on the stage, is what we're hearing, the story that we're looking at.
Right. Yeah, it was actually, the challenge, I think, was choosing words that were vague enough that they could map onto motion, and that, there was room for interpretation in the dance, but also interesting enough that they weren't just platitudes. And so that was the challenge there. And then in terms of actually visually responding to the photos, as you say, there are some moments. There's one piece called Bunker, where it's based on a photo of this boy wearing like a helmet, sort of crouched down. And there are some songs that are actually pretty literal in terms of how I'm responding to the photograph. But then there are others where it's more abstract. Maybe it's about the composition of the lines on the photo.
Troy, what was your first reaction? What did you see or hear first?
Oh, well, Paul sent us this series of images, which we were really thrilled that they were character-based. And then Ellis and I started talking because as we're making more works together, and in trying to build a repertoire for BalletCollective, I'm trying to find new avenues to explore. And I thought that there's just something so intimate, and you feel almost voyeuristic looking at these photographs because you're not seeing this model at his best. You're not seeing these like polished pictures. You're seeing someone who's in these places that are vaguely recognizable, but he's clearly very alone. And Ellis's band, he writes such great songs, and we knew it would be kind of this very fine line of how to choreograph and mix lyrics together. And I
Well,
think
how narrative do you want it to be?
right.
it's-
So basically, we kind of decided really early on that I wasn't going to be choreographing "I am sad" to these lyrics, and trying to add a different element. So you really kind of have these songs that I think are very much set the mood and kind of drive a musical narrative along that is sometimes, I think, very different from what is happening on the stage, or sometimes I think maybe the dance adds in some of the details that maybe aren't in the lyrics to kind of leave room for this kind of joint venture.
For sure. A similar question, Paul, to what I asked Mark earlier, because you're the only person in this process whose contribution starts and ends. You hand it in, and then that's sort of what it was. At any point, either having heard some of the songs or seen the movement, did you maybe want to add a photograph or take one out or go do, a different way?
I'm still doing it.
Yeah, you are still doing it, okay.
Yes, the answer is yes. I've decided to make them all into risographs. This was 2 weeks ago. I think it was when I saw them all together, printed, and it was just a bit too defined for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's never really a straight narrative that I do. And I don't know, I just felt like seeing this boy so clearly something wasn't adding up for me. But, the essence remains, I guess. So I don't think I'll change them anymore.
No. Have we done...
Did we get through all of
have
them?
we seen-
That was the fifth one.
Wonderful.
So there's 12 images in the series, but these are just 5 of them. And then
Yeah.
there's 12 sections in the ballet.
I think we should watch a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I have some post questions.
cannot be alone. I cannot be alone. And this is not my home. Long black nights, losing sight of anything at all. Don't you leave me here. Don't you leave me. the hospital. Take off all my clothes and run me through the X-ray. See the space in between. Little lies from empty lungs. The space in between. You and me, that's killing me. Paint me black and blue and take me to the loneliest little room. See the space in between. Little lies from empty lungs. The space in between. You and me, that's killing me.
Ashley Laracey, I'm sorry to do this to you, but as a little tidbit, Harrison Coll, who you saw dancing at the very end there, was once our party child when we were parents at the party scene in the New York City Ballet. I'm dating us a little bit, but he's grown
He
up
was
in-
actually my child as well.
No, really?
Yeah.
Anyway, young buck, he looks wonderful. My first question is sort of going back to the idea of BalletCollective and why it was founded. You're sort of looking for in each of these pieces, maybe we don't have a specific narrative, or there's not a story, you're not writing down, you're not having notes with the dancers about, what story their eyes need to tell, but you're obviously looking for something. I mean, it's very emotionally charged, and you're obviously looking for something else. Mm-hmm. What drew you to that? What drew you to need the photographs or the poem or the little bit of extra material?
Well, I think it's about trying to figure out what's next for ballet. And I think as a dancer for New York City Ballet, I've spent a decade actually at this point watching these great ballets from, most of them are 30, 40, 50 plus years old. And they're amazing, and they're vital works of art, but oftentimes I found the way that people relate to each other in these works isn't necessarily the way that we relate to one another or we observe people relating. And it's about finding great people to help you go places that you would never go on your own. And I think that was really kind of the goal of BalletCollective. I mean, it was super inspired by Igor Stravinsky and Balanchine creating Agon, which was, the one time that they really, really closely collaborated on kind of an abstract idea. And not only did it create an amazing work of art, but it changed the trajectory of both their careers when they were already geniuses. So I figured if that could work for them, maybe it could work for for someone who didn't really know what he was doing when he started this company. So, that's really the idea of it.
That's true. That's good. Do you find it's hard to follow up with something like that?
Yeah.
That was a good line. I should have done that. That's in my notebook somewhere. I just didn't get to it yet. This is your 5th collaboration now together. Do you find when you are sitting down, beyond beyond what Paul had given you, do you find yourself sort of thinking about, well, Troy likes this, or Troy likes what you saw earlier, working in a canon can be in a studio mind-numbing when the effect on, when you're watching it in performance can be mesmerizing, but as you would see, it's, do you know that Troy likes to do these sorts of things and then you sort of throw in something like that?
Yeah, I think it depends from piece to piece, actually. But when we meet at the beginning, often I'll actually draw like a sketch of what I'm, when we talk about it, we'll say, the beginning should be kind of tangled and fast, and then the middle should be, and I'll actually, we have all these sort of sketches, and then I'll take that back, and I definitely at this point have enough knowledge of Troy's choreography, and that I can sort of imagine what he would do with different kinds of music. But really, the thing that we try to change every single time is, is almost like the power dynamic of how things are gonna go. So like on the piece we did for City Ballet last month, actually that was maybe the first time that I've just written the music out, and then he just choreographed to it in that sort of basic way. But the other times, something like this, we talk about character, and so that ends up coming sort of from him and from me. And so basically, I have this, now a pretty wide swath of knowledge of working with Troy as to what works, and hopefully we're sort of zeroing in on something. But I think the goal is to, as we zero in on something that works, also try to keep it diverse in terms of the type of music. So we have song cycles, we have orchestral pieces, because we want to continue to challenge each other.
Did you show any of the dancers Paul's photographs before you started working, or midway through working, or?
They actually they saw them for the first time this summer in Telluride at a talk
Which
that I gave.
was how long after?
Which was the 3rd week of rehearsal. So it was a week of our workshop, and I find that it becomes like our relationship to this art it's a very personal thing, and I have my general idea, but the dancers that are a part of BalletCollective, they're so smart, and they're artists in their own right. And as we're creating these works, they develop their own ideas that I think, just like maybe in the audience, you don't need to know my idea for every moment, or Ellis's idea, or Paul's idea behind every picture. You just need to create your own. And that's really like, at the end, they look at them and they make sense. I think with the piece with Mark, I showed them a little bit sooner because we were ultimately trying to figure out how to end the piece. But yeah, it's, we look at them, and I often find that we look at them so much at the beginning, and then you get into the thick of choreographing, and then when you're done with the piece and you look back at the images, you have this kind of like aha moment where they're just so in your mind that it all of a sudden makes sense why you made certain choices.
So you sort of saturate in the beginning, and then once you have sort of rounded yourself out with this material, then you go start making all of your new material and sort of see where it goes. Right,
because I think these sources, they're the beginning of something, and they're a way for us to see something and be like, I'm sure we would never have said, all right, let's just do a song cycle. But we looked at them and we thought, this is the best way to realize that. And then we evaluated the images and we went forward. And then, I have that original idea in my mind and I know where Ellis is coming from, but then I'm responding to the music. Because oftentimes, and both of our works this year were very close to our source art, but in other times, we really take them we use it as a tool to kind of like move forward in a really different direction, so.
I should say that there was a fourth sort of important part, at least for me, to the process of making this piece, which was actually working with Vanessa, the singer. who, when we started talking about doing the song cycle, there's something very personal about anytime you're writing lyrics for someone. You know, it's like fitting a dress onto a model. And so, you know, she would come in to my studio, and we would sit and talk about it, and anything that seemed goofy we would change. And you know, and I think actually even having the oboe in there was sort of partially that came around because Vanessa has a very reedy voice as well, and there was sort of a proxy, you know, a instrumental proxy to her voice to have the oboe. And so actually, when I was writing, it was about trying to map the character that Paul had created onto this character that she already has as a singer. And that was like a really key part of the whole thing as well.
I think you did a really wonderful job. I actually, there's someone backstage who did the beautiful lighting that you saw this evening and also works with Troy all the time. I wonder if, Brandon, were you at all influenced by the photographs? Do you know if he was or not, or can you come around here?
I think that he might be able to tell this story if he's into it.
Brandon, come out on stage. You can have my mic. Is he taking his headpiece off? I'm gonna go get him. Thank you.
So I guess a lighting designer, just like what Ellis was saying, is always specific to what you're doing. It's never the same. Just because you like blue doesn't mean you use blue on everything. But the reason I say that is because what makes us individual and unique artists is by finding something that's a unique inspiration within a piece. So there were things in the coloring of, I think it was the green photo that you saw. We found, I mean, actually things like low angles of light that mimic the same feeling of these photos. So truly, the color, the angle, the timing even comes from source art. So it's amazing as a visual artist what you can find.
And I thought the most amazing part about it is that you picked up on, I thought that he had been studying these images, and he picked up on certain sections corresponding to certain photographs, and the lighting was very similar to the photographs, like through osmosis or something.
Oh, and
so weird.
It's ironic because that happened actually before I saw the photos. So it's funny that we're all sort of on the same page. It's wild. Thank you guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
Brandon.
You want to open it up? I think now we can field some questions from the audience if there are any. There shouldn't be because I covered everything, I know. If there are, please raise your hands and we'll get around the room. Yes, right here.
It's not a question specifically, but you spoke about how music needs, when you hear music, you interpret movement to it. And when I first started listening to avant-garde music, I couldn't listen to it on the radio. I mean, maybe when I would see musicians playing, I could be with the musicians, but the music was so this tonic that I couldn't appreciate it. And then I started visualizing modern dancers in my head while I listened to music. So I can understand how you need all the mediums kind of meshing together. I don't know if that's what you do, but that's what I
I think it's an aim of their company to have these, I guess not disparate pieces, but these separate art forms making each other more appealing and accessible to a larger audience. So I'm happy that that's your experience.
Well, and it's interesting trying to write music for dance because you don't want to tell the whole story. You want to give only so much. So actually you want the fact that there's dancers dancing to the music. You want that to add, to the experience. And so it sounds like that's what you're talking about as well.
I'm sorry, actually, but we got the cutoff sign. Thank you so much for coming. Troy is going to be down at NYU Skirball Center on the
November 4th and 5th.
so you can see the whole program then. Thank you for coming.